Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one starts like this. I grew up in a rough neighborhood. Rough neighborhoods are kind of funny based on what I've heard from other people with similar experiences, in that you tend to have a really polarizing effect. You have your ghost neighbors, people that never talk to anyone and for all intents and purposes don't exist. You have your neighbors from hell, and you have your awesome neighbors that you keep as close to you as possible, because in that kind of setting you need to. The neighbor on either side of the house I grew up in was pretty good. On the right was a ghost neighbor who eventually started talking to us and being pretty cool, and on the left were my godparents. Across the street was a family of meth addicts. 2 doors down from them on the corner was a guy who cooked and sold meth. He had a network of users and sellers all down the street, and damn near one corner house at every intersection was involved with him. This guy was a damn icon. People in the area called him a number of things. Tweaker Dan was one nickname, the white guy was another. He had a makeshift auto shop in his garage, and he worked on cars from around 5 AM until about midnight every day, loudly punctuated by people coming and going from his house to buy meth or shoot the crap or whatever. Sometimes he would have loud arguments with people outside, and sometimes he would have gunfights with people he argued with. More often, when he went for his gun, people left. Dan rode his bike everywhere. He had a car and it worked, but he generally just rode his bike all over the place. Now growing up, I just saw him as a crappy neighbor to be feared and avoided. The thing was, Tweaker Dan was actually a pretty friendly guy. He would wave to everyone, neighbors, anyone who lived in the neighborhood, anyone he recognized really. It wasn't until I was older that I learned a little more about Dan and his operation because of some mutual friends I ended up knowing. Dan did not just supply meth to the neighborhood users and sellers. Dan controlled a large amount of the local supply chain. There were 2 major gangs in the area, but our neighborhood fell directly in a kind of neutral area between their territories. One gang probably could have taken our neighborhood if they had wanted to. They were big enough and powerful enough, but for Dan. Dan was their supplier. They knew him as the white guy, and part of their arrangement with him is that he sold to them, but they stayed the F out of the neighborhood. This was his arrangement with anyone affiliated that he sold to. He would sell to pretty much anyone, but if he dealt with you, you kept your crap out of his neighborhood. Don't crap where you live, sort of thing. It turns out this is also why he rode his bike everywhere and waved to everyone. Dan was keeping an eye on who came and went. He waved because he wanted you to know he was watching. It wasn't so much that he was being friendly, though he was, but that he was communicating something very important, meaning he was watching. To those of us that were not involved with him, we didn't know. We didn't know about his rules, who he said was allowed to come and go, the arrangements he had made that basically kept our neighborhood from getting worse as the city around us turned to crap. We only knew about his erratic and peculiar behavior, that he never slept, that he dealt drugs, that he did them. A lot of the clean houses in the neighborhood vilified him, but it was always peculiar to see which houses were friendly with him, because it was not always who you would expect. For a guy who had so much interaction with the meth heads, he was also friends with the prison guard, the family who lived a few doors down, my godfather. People you would have thought would have avoided him. But they knew. F knows how, but they did. I asked my godfather about it after I found out, and he said yeah, he knew, he just didn't see it as something that should be talked about. So that is Tweaker Dan, one of the best and worst neighbors I've ever had. And yeah guys, I have to say I'm really conflicted when it comes to this neighbor. I'm not sure if I would say that he's a neighbor from hell or heaven. He was definitely a criminal, but it seems he also did some good for the neighborhood. And the next one, even quiet HOAs breed corruption. I moved into my development out in the boonies back in December after just saying screw it because my wife and I were tired of homes going under contract as we were walking in the front door, or we would like a place only to have our realtor look and find out there was a multi-way bidding war happening and the latest offer was already 50,000 to 100,000 over our budget. We got a new construction house right at the top of our budget. Things seemed reasonable, maybe too reasonable. First, the HOA docs we got were definitely just a template some lawyer copy and pasted and just did a find and replace on. We have no community pool or playground, no parking lots, no little parks, and then the management company did not even bother to collect our dues. Then in March we got a new management company. It turns out it is a 2-person management company of a realtor for state licensing requirement and the property manager. They are nice people, but I'm not sure why we even need them. We are a 17-house subdivision and this is where things get interesting. They sent out a follow-up letter with names of the board members. I go hunting on GIS and find out which house they are, more on this in a second. My wife and I run out for errands and on our way back we see a guy mowing the front common area where the sign is and that's it, but there's no truck or anything else nearby. My wife joked that this is what $1,000 per year pays for. I mentioned I thought the guy looked like one of our neighbors, as I am sure I have seen that mower before. Sure enough, a little while later, the mower comes down the street and goes into the neighbor's driveway and parks behind his truck and he goes in the house. I go back on GIS, and by the way guys, if anyone knows what GIS means, please let me know, and I find out it is our HOA vice president. That's a huge conflict of interest, as according to the bylaws, the board is unpaid unless the majority of the homeowners vote a provision for the board to be paid. Second, we have a $1,000 line item on the budget for lawn maintenance, so I candidly asked our management company for a list of vendors and invoices so I could see where the budget was getting its numbers from. I cannot wait to see what I am provided. As I was also reviewing the bylaws, I also found out that while the board terms are 1 year, the president and vice president seats are voted on by a 3-person board. The only position that is actually voted on by the homeowners is the secretary, which means the president and vice president can just keep electing themselves to the board, or the vice president and secretary can elect a body in the subdivision. We have also noticed that the president and vice president have the most HOA violations. The vice president has an unfinished shed in his backyard, the president has a basketball hoop in the road. Our rules say that they are not allowed in the road and must be in a lot's driveway. His kids' bikes are left out by the road, his garbage cans are always left out at the end of the road. Both let their dogs run around unrestricted, no fence or invisible fence, and the rules also say that any animal outside needs to be under the control of a responsible person. I would hardly consider a 4-year-old responsible. Basically, I am tired of paying fees when there is a sea of violations around me. As much as I loathe and hate HOAs, we all agreed to the rules when we bought our homes, so I believe that, love them or hate them, we all need to follow the rules or we all need to vote and dissolve the HOA. But since there is money involved, I doubt the latter will happen, so instead I am documenting everything carefully, and when the time comes I am going to dump a giant complaint on the department within my state that is responsible for HOAs. My wife and I were already planning on selling our house and moving to a place with better schools in a few years when our kid reaches school age. I'm already counting the days. Effin' hate these corrupt privatized governments from hell. And an update to the even quiet HOAs breed corruption story. What a month it has been. After the state regulation department essentially told me to F off and we couldn't give a damn, predictably, and after our management company finally got us in contact with our president after basically refusing to give out any of his info, my wife and I had a nice chat this afternoon with him. He fills us in on how the board members got their positions, how our management company came to be. Essentially they were the cheapest on the list of vendors and the old adage holds true. You get what you pay for. And why we saw our vice president mowing the lawn. Which, yes, there's definitely embezzlement, but it is because they didn't look into the proper way of doing things financially because they are not accountants. So they are trying to find out how to set up a board meeting, and my wife, who is an accountant, is going to help them get our budget fixed to eliminate the embezzlement. He also told us the 6 most glorious words others on this sub would love to hear. We are working to disband it. Followed up with the next greatest set of words. Don't worry about any of the rules and regulations. They are not being enforced. We were told that no one here actually wants an HOA. He then asked us what our other concerns were. Immediately my wife and I were like, with that being said, our concerns no longer exist. I am looking forward to doing whatever the heck I want on my property now. I think I am going to get my driveway paved, put up a playground for my kids without ARC approval. Hell, I'm going to hang up a forbidden clothesline. There's a ton of work ahead and we still have to keep paying our fees, but it is so nice to throw the CC&Rs into the recycle bin. And before anyone says anything, we have zero assets other than cash in the bank, which I cannot wait to see refunded to the owners. We are working on what to do with the common area and the property the HOA owns. There's like a strip that circles the development behind everyone's lot for some reason. Our road is public, so the state is responsible for it. We are still in the very early stages as the HOA just got handed over to the homeowners, and we the homeowners have said thanks, but no. And the next one is titled, "You have a terrible drainage system and you don't want to help me? Your downstream neighbor fix it? Enjoy losing your tenants." This bit of malicious compliance has been developing for some time, and yesterday and today it has finally borne fruit. The area we live in has changed drastically in the last decade or so. Almost all of our neighbors have pulled down their homes and have constructed apartment buildings. The problem is that the sewer system is quite old and is not built to handle the current volume of waste. A Chinese company is in the process of constructing a new sewer system, so the old line experiences a lot of blockage. In our home we have a septic tank. We use the sewer system only as a drain for rainwater. The compound is about halfway up a hill. The upper boundary has a live fence, but the lower side next to the road has a wall. This essentially means that when it rains, water from up the hill can flow into our compound but has no outlet. The dirt road on the other side of the wall is also poorly built and pools a lot of water next to our wall. So, to get rid of rainwater, there is an underground connection from the lowest point in our compound to the sewer line, which runs parallel to the wall on the other side of the road. It is not the most ideal setup, but it has worked for decades. Anyway, the new constructions have overtaxed the existing system. When there is a blockage, the backflow ends up in our yard since it is the lowest exit. There are about 5 apartment buildings upstream of our connection, each with over 30 units, so the backflow is usually pretty heavy. Most of the times we react quickly and remove the blockage, but it is really a pain in my ass. To add on to this, the caretakers for the 5 apartment buildings don't do anything to help me. So last week the Chinese construction cut into the existing line. However, they just filled the hole with the breach with dirt and carried on without telling anyone. I came home to a stinky flooded compound with pieces of crap floating by. I call my usual guys, but they are not around, so I decide it is time for the upstream caretakers to help out. I find 3 of the 5 chilling. I will be me, they will be C1, C2, C3, conversation translated from native language. Me, "Hey guys, the sewer line is blocked, I need a hand." C1, "Why are you always bothering us with this? It's your problem." Me, "It is our problem, we all use this line, you need to contribute to its maintenance." "We have moved to the new Chinese system, my building doesn't use the old one anymore." This was a lie. The Chinese construction was being done in stages and it was nowhere near our street. Me, "Guys, we are all moving to the new line when it gets here, just help me out until we can switch." C2, pissed at being called out, "That is not our problem, you handle it however you want, we don't care, deal with your own stuff." This really pissed me off since they had no idea how much I did for them. You want me to deal with my crap however I want? Sure thing. First of all, I found the location where the blockage was. Luckily, the crew were still there and they were super chill in helping me unblock it, although I had to buy new pipes to repair the section they had broken and also bought them some tea, if you know what I mean. Corruption is a cancer in my country. But I didn't stop there. Motivated by the caretaker's arrogance, I asked some of the guys to help me out the following day. Basically, what we did was we removed the connection between our compound and the sewer line. Instead, we leveled the depression in the road right outside our wall to allow rainwater to flow freely down slope, and then we removed a brick from the bottom of the wall to give rainwater an exit from our compound. All I had to do was wait. Yesterday afternoon, the crew working on the Chinese construction caused another blockage on the old line. Again, they did not tell anyone, they only covered it up with dirt and rocks just like before. By dusk, the 5 apartment buildings started feeling the blockage. The people living on the ground floor, some of them my friends, start to complain. Apartments are getting flooded, sink drains are not working, toilets are not flushing well. Showers smell of crap and are flooded with grey water. This evening, almost all the ground floor residents in the 2 closest apartment buildings are moving out. The stench in the houses is unbearable. I just laugh as I help my friends move. The caretakers are too ashamed to ask me for help. They have no idea where the blockage could be since they have never had to fix one before. I am not about to tell anyone. Update, so just an update, the caretakers moved pretty quick. Turns out they are not bad at their jobs, only needed some motivation. They, all 5, managed to fix the blockage by the afternoon, although by then a 3rd apartment building had begun experiencing some difficulty. A couple more people moved out, but I think it is mostly due to the smell lingering around the buildings. As I am writing this, I have just come from looking in on the damage. The caretakers are still cleaning houses, will cost a pretty penny to fix up. I doubt they will be habitable for the next couple of months or so. The 3 caretakers whose buildings have been affected are pretty cross with me. There have been some threats about reporting me to the owners of the buildings, but I'm not too worried about that. I am sure the owners will come wondering why they are suddenly spending a lot of money for repairs, but they are friends of the family. People I have known ever since I was a kid when this community was still small, so I'm sure there won't be a problem. The drainage system we built a few days ago is yet to be tested by rain, so fingers crossed. In any case, I won't be moving back to the previous system. Some of the comments here prompted me to do some research, and I realized that diverting storm water into the sewer line is a terrible thing to do, so I'm not doing that again. Otherwise, I think my malicious compliance has come to an end. Thank you guys for your comments, I learned new things and particularly enjoyed the crappy puns. Take care and stay fresh. By the way, I was wrong, the repercussions seem to be snowballing. They apparently couldn't wait and decided to build a line to meet the Chinese construction. And well guys, that just shows sometimes it can be definitely beneficial to help your neighbors out. Otherwise, there might be a crappy surprise waiting for you. And the next one is titled, Today I screwed up by returning a pizza cutter to my new neighbor. This happened 6 months ago. We just moved into a new house. We had a bunch of friends help us move and we naturally got some take and bake pizza because people who help you move deserve pizza. It is the least we could do, cue pizza time, and we realize we have no pizza cutter. This could have been foreseen since all our stuff was in boxes, but things like that fall through the cracks because moving is stressful. No big deal, one of our friends goes over to a neighbor's house and the guy generously lends his pizza cutter. Couple days later, I head over to the neighbor's house to return said pizza cutter. I am feeling pretty peppy since I have a good reason to meet a neighbor. There's definitely a little bounce in my step. I ring the doorbell and a woman opens the door a quarter of the way. I am only 95% sure I am in the right house, so I lead with, I think I have your pizza cutter, and I quickly whip it up in front of me. Remember, I'm feeling a little peppy, so my movement was a bit quick. Also, pizza cutter was borrowed from a guy. This lady presumably has no idea that her husband lent out their pizza cutter. So naturally, when the strange man at the door flips up a knife-like object in front of him, she shrieked and slammed the door shut. The next 3 seconds felt like 3 minutes as I put all the pieces together. She was putting some pieces together too and reopens the door like 1/16 of the way. I sheepishly say, I believe this is your pizza cutter. We are your new neighbors and maybe we borrowed it from your husband the other day. The next minute was filled with profuse apologies on both sides. I gave her the pizza cutter and then went home. A few weeks later, my wife saw her and they chatted and laughed about the pizza cutter incident, so all is well. Clarifications. Number 1, our pizza cutter was in a box. Also in boxes, knives, scissors, machetes, really all of our sharp pizza cutting objects were packed away. That is why we didn't just use a knife. We would have, but we didn't have one available, and yes, we did look through a few boxes. Number 2, to everyone saying we should have just ordered pizza from a restaurant, yeah, probably we should have. Our stressed out moving brains had decided that take and bake was the better option. I'm not going to try and defend that position, but it is what we chose to do. But you are right, we should have just ordered pizza from somewhere. And the next one is titled, My neighbor abused his dog, so I dog napped it and took it to a rescue farm to live on. The person who lives directly across the street from me is a disgusting old guy who is the epitome of the awful neighbor. He's the type of guy that will call the cops if he sees a car parked more than a foot from the curb or if someone's grass is half an inch too tall for his liking. He had a German shepherd that he kept outside 24/7 and tied to a chain. The dog had maybe a circumference of about 6 feet in which to roam because the chain was so short and it always spilled the small bucket of water. I probably filled that water bucket more than the dog's owner did. One day I saw him grab the dog by the head, pick him up off the ground and throw him at the wall of the porch because the dog had pissed on the walkway and not in the grass. I marched over to his locked gate and began screaming at him to knock it the F off, lest I call the police on him. He told me to mind my own business and dragged the dog inside. I decided right then and there that by hook or by crook I was getting that dog away from that guy. I got in contact with a friend of a friend who runs a private no-kill shelter on a huge farm. She said she would be more than pleased to take the German Shepherd and not question where it came from. I waited about a week for the next time he left the dog outside. While he was gone, I walked across the street, cut the padlock on the gate with bolt cutters and freed the dog. He bounded into my car and I began the 90-minute trek out into the country to take the dog to his new home. He fell in love with that farm from the moment he jumped out of my car when we arrived, and the lady who runs the shelter absolutely adores him. Despite his previous lot in life, he's a very happy and playful dog and shows almost no lingering effects from his mistreatment. By the time I got back to my place, the neighbor was home. He saw me pull into my driveway and asked if I had seen his dog. I did not even look at him and said, "Nope," before going inside and letting loose with a supervillain chuckle. The dog is doing great at his new home and is back to a healthy weight. The neighbor seemingly forgot about him after a few days, as I haven't heard of him ask anything further about the dog. Another neighbor told me that the a-hole assumes the dog ran away, because dogs are capable of cutting a padlock and opening a latched gate. If I see that guy ever get another animal, I'm going to take it to the farm too, only won't wait so long this time. And Ripe stars, unfortunately we have already reached the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed the content. However, if you cannot wait for more Ripe content, then I suggest you head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where you can find more exclusive Reddit content read by me. Patreon subscriptions start at just $1 per month, and for $1 your name will show up at the end of each of my new videos. However, if you are willing to spend $3 per month, you will get access to more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos, mostly just no mother-in-law stories. However, please understand, I don't want to pressure anyone into spending money, because I am already incredibly grateful that you watch my videos every single day. Thank you so much for your daily support, it really means the world to me, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for the next video.